Hello and welcome back to the Expert Scale Show, where I'm joined today by our special guest, Jordan. Jordan is actually a dear friend of mine. What's up, Jordan? Welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. I couldn't think of a better way to spend my day than with my old pal Richard.
Bro, and right in the middle of literally this snow apocalypse you guys are facing over there in Minnesota. You guys holding
Yeah,
up
it was
okay?
like bright and sunny literally half an hour ago, and now it's piling on the snow here in April. So it's quite the treat at the end of winter here.
Crazy, dude. We've been losing power, like families coming over, absolute insanity. But I suppose April showers bring lack of power. That's how the old adage goes.
Yes,
At
accurate.
least if you live around us. So hey man, really excited to have you on the show. You've been up to some pretty cool stuff lately, and we wanted to bring our audience and our community into that. You recently started a company called Revatto, and what I have really noticed is that it seems like everyone who is running an expert business who works with you, if they have a high ticket offer or a subscription offer, they end up coming back to me and ranting and raving about all this free money that started showing up in their bank account after working with you and your team. And so you guys are doing some sort of sorcery over there when it comes to retaining customers and getting people to actually stay on subscription, stay on payment plans. So we wanted to dive into this today because, as you know, one of the things that I think we're deeply passionate about over here is building expert businesses that are sustainable and even exitable. And one of the things you have to have if you want to build a business like that is happy customers who keep paying you over the long term. And the online expert space, let's just call it out, has been notorious for exchanging short-term transactions for a lack of long-term business value. And so I love that you guys are flipping the script on this, that you guys are putting systems in place for people to retain their customers, keep them happy, and keep them paying. And dude, we're going to have a legendary show today. You ready?
I'm stoked. Let's rock and roll.
So take us into how you guys discovered whatever magic you're doing back there. Like, what's the backstory for Revatto, and how did you guys come up with this cutting edge system for helping online businesses basically retain more of their clients and customers longer and keep them on subscription? Tell us the backstory.
Yeah, I actually had sold a company in June of last year, which was a low ticket recurring software business, and so I've always been a huge fan of recurring revenue because you never start a month at zero. You always start with a certain amount of monthly recurring revenue that can help kick the month off in the right direction. And so I actually had gone forward to exit that business, and thankfully I eventually did exit. But it was about 2 solid years straight of just challenges that I was fighting through, primarily because the primary driver of value, but also valuation in a company, if your goal is to either exit or to fundraise or to whatever stage that you're at. In my case, I wanted to exit. If you are looking to exit, the number one value driver, even over marketing, is retention. It is how long on average do you keep a customer in your business, not necessarily how many are you bringing in. A company at equal amounts of, say someone's at $1 million a year and they have maybe a 2-month retention rate versus a business that's at $1 million a year, but they have an 8-month retention rate. That person's going to get significantly higher valuations in their company, as well as predictable growth where you aren't consistently having to refill a leaky bucket. So in my case, I had to fix all of our churn and retention issues and things going on that I didn't even realize how much money I was losing at the time until I got pointed out. And then we had to dive in deep to go back reactively and try to fix so many things about product or client success or just various operational systems that kind of kept us bottlenecked. The number one issue for us was retention. And so that's really what is going to drive not only predictability and revenue for maybe just a business that's primarily about cash flow if you have no intent to exit, but if you ever want to sell that business, the number one thing, no matter if it's a high ticket payment plans or if it's a mid ticket recurring or low ticket subscriptions, the number one driver of value, of course, it's retention. And so that's the big problem we wanted to solve in our case. And so I started a 30-day social media experiment actually in March of last year and just documented building an enterprise B2B software or service within 30 days and get it up and validated with some first clients. And so what started as a social media experiment has blossomed into this full company. We've got 6 generally full-time people, clients from all over the world, and in many cases, significantly higher results than any of our competitors. They don't know what's coming, but they're gonna see it pretty soon.
I remember seeing you do this 30-day or 60-day, whatever you said it was, a social experiment. I find that fascinating. Can you tell us a little more about that? What did you do that took you from obviously being an expert in the online space to suddenly having this B2B SaaS in such a short time?
Yes, I'm very much an idea visionary type. I'm like just full of ideas. I'm bad at a lot of things, but there's one thing I'm really good at is idea creation and validating brand new businesses and offers and whatnot. So, but I had always done that for my whole lifespan, for over the course of months or sometimes even years, to like validate what's the right model, which way to go, and all these types of things. So it's like, how do I validate a an enterprise level, what could be an enterprise level B2B offering, in as short a timeline as possible? So literally from day one through day 30, just posting videos almost every single day. Sometimes I was busy running a business and running a family and also trying to launch this other business at the same time, that I missed a couple days, but certainly was able to document that. And so I was using AI for the first logo. It was a really bad first logo, but then as soon as we're validated, we changed it up. The business model, the offering, some of the operations and whatnot. So leveraging into AI to speed up my process, but ultimately come down to a decision of what would be the highest possible new value in a space that has not been iterated on in a long time. Like right now, you don't want to get into the like the website builder game. Like, don't play that game. You don't want to get into music streaming. You don't want to get into like fighting with these giants. Instead, my perspective has always been to go after a far more specific niche in an area or a sector that just has not been iterated on. So that's what I documented through that challenge and process, and here we are today. It's now my primary gig and focus, pretty much full time, and loving every minute.
You guys are exploding now. So obviously that challenge led to something. You guys struck gold.
Yeah, so we do. Obviously there have been a couple down months, but otherwise, I think in the last year we've had 2 months where we didn't beat the previous month. But overall, it's been between 20% or up to a 70% month over month growth for us. So we have grown very rapidly. I hope no one throws rocks at me or anything, but we have not launched paid marketing yet. It's all been organic and referral based up to this point. And so certainly looking to scale into these next couple months and years.
Why do you guys think you've achieved growth like that? I mean, everybody wants growth like that, especially when they're launching a SaaS, which I know so many people in the expert space are thinking about it. We were literally just having a conversation in Board of Experts about it this morning, where there's tons of experts who are like, man, I need to unlock the scalability of a SaaS. How do I do that? What do you guys think what are the primary things that have led to your growth and your success so far?
Well, as I've always told, even the people in the expert space, but you're right. There's a lot of expert coach consultant types that are getting into the monthly recurring revenue game. Whether that's, you may have already been doing it with high ticket payment plans, but getting into like a SaaS product and whatnot. And I always tell people, just, yes, predictable revenue it's my absolute favorite. It's the best kind of money you'll ever earn in a business, is monthly recurring. However, it comes with MRR challenges as well. So it is not like any completely passive income stream that you might think that it is. It does come with challenges, primarily retention being the number one problem, because you can fill that bucket with a single launch. Everyone listening to this is probably a good marketer or a good salesperson. You can fill that, but if you want to keep people there, that's another part of the funnel, which I understand we're going to get into some strategies here as well. But I always say, if you're looking to get into some kind of low ticket or even mid ticket, say you have a high ticket offering, you're looking to get into like a one-to-many community, a one-to-many coaching program, courses, or like low ticket SaaS, those types of things. The biggest thing before you make that decision is to ensure that the offer that you are making is not twice as good. It has to be 10 times better than any other competitors, either in the speed of getting the result that person's looking for, the amount of support that maybe they receive versus their competitors. How is that particular market being underserved by the other software tools or low or recurring offers in the space? How is that audience being underserved? And if you can solve that problem, you can likely take a significant percentage of that market share. So I always say it comes back to offer. I think it wasn't Dan Kennedy who said, It's the offer, stupid. Every problem you ever have in business comes back down to the offer, whether it's sales, marketing, conversions, retention, profits. Every number in your business is just directly correlated to the quality of the value of your offer.
It's the offer, stupid. There's a zinger for the day. I'll make that into a short quote. Interesting. I love that you just quoted Peter Thiel in 0 to 1. At least I think you did, or if you did, you did it unintentionally. That was so transformational. I first read that in his book about basically when you're launching a new product, you need to think about how is it 10 times better than what's already out there. Because if it's a slight iteration or a small improvement, it's really hard to take market share. And so it honestly, watching you guys absolutely just dominate this space in such a short time, it seems like you guys have achieved that. So let's talk about why that is. Let's talk about why this is hitting such a nerve in the expert community. Again, man, like everyone I talk to, they're like referring you to people. They're they're singing your guys' praises. We've actually onboarded and started working with you guys. We've been really, really impressed in a short time with what you guys have been able to achieve. So let's start at the highest level here. Let's talk about why retention, why prioritize retention in expert business, especially, because some of the experts here, they're thinking to themselves, we don't have a retention problem. We have a great product. Customers love us. We have great testimonials. Why should somebody in that situation look at and examine retention in their business, especially if they think maybe that's not their issue?
Boy, that if you guys can just like social media clip this moment out and go put that on short form video from this podcast, that I think could literally change just this topic here, could change somebody's life. The way I like to think about it is where your sales funnel ends, your retention funnel begins. So at the point in time when the conversion occurs and you got the sale and you collected the cash, that sales funnel, the marketing funnel, essentially has done its job. It has gone through to completion. Now you're in a retention funnel. Now there's a whole depth to this that I think a lot of expert businesses don't consider, and it's a shame because a lot of expert businesses that otherwise could have thrived or could have scaled, especially if you're doing payment plans or recurring billing of any kind. They could have been thriving and they could have been far more profitable. They could have spent a lot, maybe less on ads, or they could have scaled significantly further if they understood this concept that just someone buying from you is not the end of the road. It's actually the beginning of the road in keeping that customer over time. And there's a lot of categories that we can kind of break down how this goes. But imagine this. This is how I like to compare it. Look at whatever your cost per acquisition is. So say you have a $100 per month subscription and it's maybe you have a $200 cost per acquisition. Would you rather spend $200 to get a $100 customer per month, or would you rather spend $20 to keep a customer that's already paid you to stay retained in your infrastructure? That's the difference here. You're talking about a in some cases 25 times higher cost of acquiring a brand new customer than retaining one. So, the nature of marketers being really good marketers is that they think, oh, I can always go and acquire more customers. But another way to think about it is, what if I could cut your traffic cost down to 10%, which is essentially what it is. When you're able to retain a significantly higher amount of customers and to fight against churn and keep people paying you month over month, the exponential growth of that, what we call incremental revenue, which is the value of a customer being recovered or retained over time. If you see that compounding effect, like you can actually spend a lot less on ads. You can worry a lot less about marketing. You can be even worse at sales potentially because you are maintaining people long-term. So I think one of the most critical aspects of any business, especially expert businesses, if you're looking to scale, is to focus as much, literally 50-50 on sales and marketing and retention at the same time. Those two are halves of an entire whole. And I think far too many expert businesses and coaches and people who have an amazing service kind of drop the ball as far as keeping their customers long-term, even for life, and, focus 90% of their time on marketing versus retention. So I'd say if you give it that equal balance between the two, it can seriously change your business for the better.
So let's say I'm a founder you just described, and I'm not currently spending 50% of my efforts on retention, my retention funnel, as you put it. What do I do?
Boy, loaded question, right? Let's see. Did I get disconnected?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, I think it's still okay. So what do? Well, the first thing is, as they say in the recovery, in the actual recovery space, the first thing to do is to identify and admit that you have a problem. I'd say looking into the numbers.
That's a different
That's uh,
recovery space, isn't
that's a
it?
different kind of recovery, but to borrow the colloquialism, you have to admit that there's a problem, and so there's a couple different buckets that we like to think about. First is kind of the pre-churn retention. This is the customer experience as far as what happens before either a voluntary or involuntary churn event occurs. So it's kind of the pre-churn retention. Then once we get into this new category here that most people aren't paying attention to, and generally they're taking Stripe and turning on auto retries if it's on a subscription, hoping that works. And you're going to find that at least where we're comparing, you're going to see between a 10 and maybe 40% at best recovery just using the Stripe rebills and their recovery features, versus for us, we're seeing between 70 to 98%, depending on the price point, the products, customers, all those types of things. It's because taking a better approach than just slamming through rebills is going to make a big difference. So there's the pre-churn retention play. Then there's failed billings. These are generally transactional, where someone's card fails, or there's insufficient funds, or there's a bank block, or their cards got robbed, or whatever it was. These are involuntary pieces of churn. Now, these are when they didn't intend to leave, but something accidentally happened. Now, you could hire a staff member to go back and consistently call those people and try to get them back on track. That's one method to go about doing it. But then you're also fighting against really this third category of churn, which is strong voluntary churn. Now, this is when people are saying, stop charging me. I don't want to give you any more money. I don't want this product anymore. And so what I found, almost like in many, I don't know, friendships I've had over time, if someone says, or like when you're a kid and you have a good friend and they say, I don't want to be your friend anymore. That's very subjective. And you're very likely going to be friends ongoing. You just have to solve a problem. So really hard voluntary churn is essentially people saying, I'm unsatisfied. So if we're able to go out and address the level of, or the issue around satisfaction or support or product quality or whatever, if we can help them get what it is that they wanted when they signed up in the first place, that's how we can fight churn as well. So I'm saying this is a completely solvable problem for virtually 100% of businesses on any kind of recurring billing. If your product is just awful, right, you got to fix the product. But assuming that you have a generally good product that drives generally good outcomes, you should be experiencing less than half of the churn on average that I see, way less than half of the churn that you're experiencing when you can start to see this retention funnel coming into place.
What are some of the most common reasons you see people drop off in expert businesses specifically? So like when your team's in the trenches, recovering payments, reselling people, which again is something that you guys do that I think is just incredible. Like you guys almost are like a reselling team at some point for the product. What are some of the most common reasons you're seeing that customers stop paying or they stop engaging? I think that would be really valuable for you guys have all that data from a product standpoint for people to be able to reverse engineer and go, okay, how do I actually create a better customer experience? Take us into that. What are you seeing?
Yeah. So boy, again, there's, just for context as to why it would be a very long conversation to go super in depth, is that there's over 2,000 different reasons, subjective and objective, including voluntary and involuntary churn, that are possible reasons why someone stops paying you, why churn occurs. There's over 2,000 different reasons that we've deduced in our listing.
Wow.
And so we tried to factor in as many of those possibilities as we can in order to, if we can address that churn reason why they're churning out, voluntary or involuntary, then we know how to address it. And then that's why we're so significantly more effective, we find, than other solutions, is because we're taking the reason and the reason for the churn, and we can address that directly. But I would say generally, as far as like advice is concerned, the first thing to consider to fight against churn is to prevent it in the first place, right? It's kind of like, what's that old saying from I think it was The Office or something, like, what's the best way to not die when you're skiing? Well, you don't ski. Well, you certainly should have a subscription based portion of your business, but to prevent that churn is the number one step to fighting the entire churn battle overall. So the biggest things I recommend there, just as far as a couple tips, make sure that you're building feedback loops into every step of their customer success journey. Like, what is the outcome that you're proposing that you give? Not, if they're coming in expecting a particular result, the sooner that they can get that, the better. So give them some feedback loops for each step in the journey. It doesn't matter if this is a service or if this is a software. There's a thousand different ways to build these feedback loops into the system. But essentially, when they do a thing, they complete an activity, or they perform a behavior that you want them to be adopting, reward that by closing off the loop and saying, hey, great job, you did it, let's get you into the next one, right? So whether it's a dopamine hit or you're sending them gifts or prizes, I mean, why do you think the all these awards for, whether it's funnel revenue or the YouTube awards or like any of these platforms that award people, they're closing feedback loops saying, hey, you did this thing, we want you to go do more of that thing, let's close the loop and reward you for that, and confirm that that was the right thing that we want to do. So feedback loops are critical. The second big part of the pre-churn retention is to build in tracking, very specific tracking and customer success reports. Knowing where each one of your students or your customers are in that journey is going to help inform you any bottlenecks you're going to face, any product related issues that are stuck. I remember, Richard, one time I had this big course and there were, I think, several thousands of people through it, but there was one step, it was like step 8 out of 12, that was a 404 page because a redirect wasn't working. And so all these people were being stuck there, and almost none of them would like report it to you. They're not going to like call you and say, hey, this step, it's like less than 1% of people are actually going to do that. So there are people falling off, and we didn't even know about it because we weren't tracking exactly where people were at. And you're going to see a huge fall off, and you can go look at the page, whether it's active or not. So the pre-churn retention is a huge piece. And so addressing client experience, tracking the results, and closing feedback loops, that's the absolute biggest portion. But again, on this other side, as far as common reasons, why people are not paying either your payment plans or even subscriptions. Generally, we see one of the top primary reasons is insufficient funds. So there's not enough funds on that card, or they've gone over their credit limit. Now, these are easily addressable, but they are subjective reasons. And so you can't just auto rebill them and continue to hit their card, because it's actually going to put your merchant processing account at risk by doing that. Instead, you want to get in touch with the customer directly, which is what we found is our secret sauce, is how we go about addressing customers directly to get them back on track, so that we can, if we don't know the reason, whether it's voluntary, involuntary, if it's a objective or subjective reason why they're churning, we're able to interface with them directly to get them back on track, and then kind of heal up that subscription itself to ensure that it doesn't fail ongoing, so that the card is healthy, problems are solved. If they had product issues, you can get some of that feedback as well. But really, it goes back to whoever coined it. I think I would attribute it probably to most recently hearing it from a Jeff Bezos quote or something. But the concept of love your customer and obsess over your customer couldn't possibly be more valuable, especially when you're getting feedback from people as far as like what the issues are, what are the problems they're experiencing with their card. Maybe we've had people with a death in the family, or they've had a divorce, or their bank account got hacked. Any of these reasons are going to be, it's all money left on the table that if you're able to address it appropriately, you can win people back for almost any reason.
That's fascinating. Love your customers. Is that the secret sauce over there? That's what you guys are doing to get 80 to 90% of customers back on board? You just showing love, dealers in love.
I'll tell you, man, there's we actually operate as a white label representative inside the organization. So literally I have crafted the organization and the ethos and the goals of our entire team to truly be like, we might love your customers more than you do. So we obsess over your customers as well. And so we find that to be extremely helpful as far as maintaining not just more revenue, right? Which is our number one priority, is to ensure that the company is collecting as much revenue as possible. But secondly, it's to keep customers happy, because happier customers are going to stay with you long term. So we might only recover someone once, but they could remain a customer for months or even years into the future because of how we treat them. So yeah, we're obsessive about obsessing over customers for sure.
It's amazing. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about an elephant in the room, okay? Which is, for a long time, the online expert, high ticket space has prioritized doing what? Collecting as much money up front as possible. I would say almost to the detriment or to the ignorance of subscription billing. Now, of course, there's people still doing it, and I think in the current what we call trust recession, more and more people are gravitating towards lower upfront monthly commitments. With the rise of WAP in school, and just more and more people gravitating towards communities and subscription models. Obviously, there's people moving there, but for anyone here they're doing a lot of money online, and let's just say their mentors and coaches have taught them, collect as much money up front as possible. What challenges do you feel like those types of businesses are going to face in 2025? And why should they consider moving to more of a subscription model, or at the very least, creating more flexibility in payment plans they offer their customers?
Boy, great question. So I think there's some technical and business wisdom there, and there's also some subjective ethical stuff there too. So I'd say, objectively speaking, if you are sure, it makes sense to get as much cash collected as possible. What was it, like 5 to 8 years ago? Everyone in the high ticket space, expert businesses especially, were going after like, you get every single penny that you can out of that human being, which is like, we collect as much as possible. That gives us the highest possible revenue rate, our highest profitability rate, for that month. And all the numbers look really, really good. We can track our ROAS much easier. But the issue there is that you still have delivery over the entire span of time that occurs after getting all that money collected up front. And so I've seen, I think from like a specific business related perspective, shoving that kind of that I don't know, that type of rhetoric or that type of business practice of like, just squeeze it for all it's worth. I think there's very much an issue of like, that's not really, say you have a 90-day program and you collect it all up front, or maybe you have a 12-month mastermind or program. No, those payments are amortized and can then therefore be applied to having been collected in 12-month increments, right? In monthly increments over 12 months. So you still have that responsibility. And so even I see a lot of people saying, hey, I collected, $1 million or whatever. And I said, yeah, you probably did, but it's for an annual delivery that you still have to perform, on the back end, and hopefully give those people a really good experience because they're putting so much money up front. And so, and I think, Richard, you and I are both in the same perspective that I think more from an ethical perspective, especially as far as putting the onus of responsibility back on the business owner. Now, business owners are not going to want to hear this. I could promise you that, but I've also been a consumer of very high ticket and very expensive programs that did not deliver over time. And it's primarily because they collect all the money they possibly can up front, and then they kind of let you dwindle off into the distance. You're forgotten in the back. So I think from an ethical perspective, it holds our feet to the fire as business owners to have to perform every month and to give and deliver on what it is that we promised that we would give. Whether it's plus it's obviously going to help you with cash flow, right? So like collecting it all up front is fine, but you're going to spend it a lot sooner than if you're collecting that over time, or even enrolling more customers because you're more flexible with payment plans or subscriptions. Not to mention the nature of having a community where they're paying you a low ticket every month just to be in your ecosystem becomes a well to drink from whenever you need to boost, or you're launching a brand new product or any of those things. So tons of objective and subjective reasons within that. But we, on our side at Revatto, we have a 100% retention up to this point since day one. And that's primarily because we have to prove ourselves every month. We don't have, every one of our competitors happens to have 12-month agreements. You got to go over these like long-term things, and there's minimums and setup costs and transaction fees and all that. We're like, strip all of that out to nothing, where we bear a 100% of the risk up front, where people can leave us at any point in time if we don't deliver. And frankly, up front, there's like, any business owner could jump into this and be like, all right, guys, the wheel is now yours, start driving. And in our case, I think there's a lot of beauty and synergy to the model of waking up every morning, being excited, not just to sell, but also to deliver at the same time.
I call it a virtuous cycle. And I've been talking to our team about this. I think the way you construct your business either creates virtuous cycles or invirtuous ones. And it's funny how that even applies to what you said about payment methods and payment plans, because if you construct your business in a way where You collect all the money up front. It gives you a false sense of wealth. We're
Yes,
rich. And you go and what do you do as a business owner? You throw it into something else. You buy fancy stuff you don't need. You
exactly.
uh, push marketing. You rev up marketing. You hire a bunch of people, whatever. And you're like, go for the moon. And who gets left behind in that equation? The customer who actually paid,
Customer.
and a big portion of that money was intended to actually make sure we delivered a great experience to them. And so, like, I just love what you said. Like, having a monthly payment plan, it creates accountability, not just from a business owner perspective of like, you need to be ethical and be good. No, it helps you build a better business. Like, it puts you within an environment that ultimately will lead to you doing the things that will lead to the business you want, the actual business you want, not the flashy revenue numbers I posted on Facebook and everybody thinks I'm cool business, the business that's still here in 3 years, that has great reviews and testimonials, happy customers, and great profits over the long term.
Okay, so I have to share this because this just happened, just broken in the news. So perfect example of this, and it is the what's the opposite of a fairy tale? Is it a nightmare? The nightmare situation of what happens when people do what we're talking about here. Well, we've seen plenty of business implosions in the past. So a lot of solar companies went out for doing the exact same thing as well. Zero retention, a lot of unhappy customers, and collecting a bunch of cash up front. Even outside of legal issues, there's this company called 11X. That was this huge like AI based SDR. So like they'd set appointments and they claimed they could actually close deals as well, but they just imploded. And there's this huge a bunch of the investors are trying to sue them for fraud and whatnot. There's all these stories, you can look it up. But the big thing they were doing is they were selling and collecting upfront on an annualized contract, but they gave people a 3-month out. So they're saying, hey, if you don't like it within 3 months, after that time or whatever, you can get your money back. And, they, in their case, they weren't even protecting their own downside. They were even presenting to investors that when people were buying, they were buying for a 12-month term, but they had about a 90% churn rate within that 3 months. So that was a 3-month trial is what it was. And so when the product didn't deliver magic, gold, and fairy dust, right, then people canceled it in that time. And now they're just in a ton of trouble. So you're actually instituting significantly higher problems by collecting all the cash up front than you would by spreading that out over time, especially if you have recovery mechanisms like we have available today, and like what we're building even within Revatto, where it's just installing it. It's like an insurance plan against losing that potential money down the road. So our goal is to build something that would give you all the benefits of recurring billing, including the growth in your valuation by having true customers paying you over time. As well as ensuring that anyone who could break those out, but whether it's cash up front collected plus a payment plan or subscriptions, whatever it is. Frankly, in this day and age, it makes more sense to spread that out over time than it would be to collect it all up front, primarily because of every liability issue we just talked about.
100%. Do you think there are some people who don't move to subscription billing or offer more payment plans because they feel like they lack the systems to follow up on just the logistics of failed payments? Or have you encountered that for some people your guys' solution actually allows them the confidence to step in and do that because they don't have to worry about the logistics or worry about if that money is actually something they can count on?
Great question. Yeah. So I am seeing that as a thread that a lot of businesses, even that have payment plans on high ticket or even subscriptions or any of those things, they're starting to slow that down because they recognize that collections can be such a difficult game, or it's outsourcing their entire high ticket sales infrastructure to external companies or external financing. But all those, that's not the right solution, is what I'm saying. So just pushing it to third party financing companies, maybe it'll pick some of that up. But if that customer defaults on that payment plan, they're going to claw it back from you. So you're worse off than you would have been if that customer had not been sold in the first place, right? Because you're trying to collect as much money as physically possible up front. So what we're seeing is that there have been multiple discussions I've had with entrepreneurs who are either completely outsourced the financing because they're like, I don't want to deal with the collection game. It's expensive. It's really boring. It's time consuming. You have to staff it up. You have to have systems for the whole thing. You have to manage a team of people doing it. And so we're saying, how do we eliminate that entirely where you don't have to hire, you don't have to put a penny in. You don't spend any money and you get the benefit, but without having all the managerial stress. I think that it really has awakened up a lot of entrepreneurs to say like, wait a second, I actually could collect this in-house. So we have had several that were doing external financing payment plans, and they just move that in-house, and then we take over recoveries on our side. And end of the day, they're due to the not having the clawback issues or any of the problems that come with high ticket financing, or even the issue of like chargebacks and churn problems and access level issues on subscriptions. Not having to worry about those things helps you to just focus on what matters, which is serving your customers well and going to get more of them. So we always say, you go get the customers and we'll keep them. That's really our goal.
That's amazing. I like your motto. I think you've come up with a couple mottos recently.
We have like 20. There's like 20.
What was it?
Mottos,
Bravo, Revatto.
I think that was Dan Ryder. Yeah, Bravo Revatto.
That's the new one, Dan Ryder. I like that one too. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, man. As we begin to move towards a close, let's say I'm an expert listening today, and I'm like, man, I love this, but I don't know where to start. Other than obviously reaching out to you and your team, which we'll have in the show notes, and I would highly recommend it to anybody listening. It's a zero risk, and honestly, our experience with you guys has been nothing short of amazing. The service, the recovered payments has been incredible. But what would you say to somebody who maybe is starting out? Maybe they're not even fully yet doing subscription, or if they are, they're having issues with retention. If there's one thing that you could leave them with that would encourage them to focus in the right direction and improve that outcome in their business, what would you tell them? What would be that one thing?
Yeah, a couple of pieces of advice if you just want to go solve it on your own. Certainly, we even have some free resources. So if you want a copy of our outreach templates for at least the first several days, I'm happy to give that away for free. Hopefully, we can put those down in the show notes and just give away a template. Take it with my compliments. And if you want to install your own system, there's some basic psychology that will help you to recover more. So you just customize it yourself and launch it. So hopefully that's a gift that's valuable to everybody. But I'd say from the pre-churn retention, before there's actual threat of churn, the biggest thing is get them a win as soon as possible, and then build a feedback loop to ensure that they know that they just overcome some kind of a hurdle, like they've won something. You want to make them feel engaged in the process, and you can do that through gamification and just closing some of these feedback loops. It's going to make a huge impact to people being happier over time. Doing active reach outs from your client success team, making sure that people feel guided through the process so that they're clear, they know exactly what they're supposed to do and what amount of time. And those types of customers tend to be happier and get the outcomes that it is that you're selling, which I know a lot of really ethical entrepreneurs want as well. When it comes to when a failed payment occurs, my biggest thing is make sure that you're outreaching one-on-one. I'm not kidding, because this is what we do on behalf of our clients. Reach out one-to-one to every single one of those failures. So at the point of time of failure, it's a personal message written out to them that's customized to them that says, hey, I just saw that this failed. Is there anything else we can do to really help you? So overwhelm them with love and value and support. And you're going to see this huge shift, not only in like the relationship between you and the customer, but in the ethos of your entire organization, where you are customer obsessed and you're going after what the Bible says is the least of these, to borrow the proverb, so to speak, or to borrow the colloquialism. So to go after just one person means that you value all of your customers at a rate that you'd be willing to go out and to save any of them. So really they are at risk of loss. So go after just one and make it a personalized experience for them. It's going to either give you phenomenal product feedback, or you're actually going to be able to keep a customer long-term. So preventing it means feedback loops, behavioral adjustments, very clear, actionable step-by-step details for them to get the result and getting a result sooner. Or as soon as any kind of issue happens, whether it's even a chargeback or a payment failure for any reason or whatever it is, if you can personally and one-on-one, not in mass scale and not automated through Stripe's automatic recovery tool, because frankly, it's just inefficient, turn that off and go take over all of your recovery. You can hire someone in to do it into your team if you want to take over it. Or, obviously we do this for people. But we take that whole approach that it is truly a one-on-one conversation with every single customer whenever they're at risk of churn, and them just feeling like they matter actually does make a big difference. It's more than just these technical, payment related issues. It's when people feel guided and supported, like there's someone on their team, not just trying to take money from them like a debt collector. That's ineffective as well. You may as well continue to nurture and foster that relationship. And in our case, I can promise you this. Here's my big, hairy, audacious promise, is that if you do this, if you help them to win sooner, and if there's any kind of a risk or a flag of a churn issue or failed payment or any lapse of the transaction not going through for whatever reason that might be, if you give a personal outreach to that person, I can promise you, you are not only buying whatever positive outcome comes from that conversation relationally, where customers are super happy. You're going to have a customer for life, where you just by putting in a little bit extra effort to make them feel supported and get them back on track. Just imagine like the value that person feels, how understood that they are, that how much longer they're going to stay with you. So that's my big advice: is consider both the objective reasons as well as the subjective reasons, and you're going to just see a total lift off, a complete reversal of your churn, whether you do it in house or we take care of it for you or whatever you want to do. My big advice would be do something about it, and it can change your life.
Golden advice. I love that you slipped in the good shepherd and the lost sheep there too. That was great. Go after the lost sheep. That's what your recovered payments are.
That's what it is. It's in each one. It's just one. It's not the whole flock at once. It's one at a time.
Wow. Golden. Well, Jordan, this has been such a fun conversation. As always, man, it's fun hanging out with you. And I know you brought such value to our community today. Thanks for being on the show. And thanks for those of you who are listening today. Make sure you check out the show notes. Go get in touch with Revatto if you want more profit in your bank account at the end of the month by literally doing nothing other than letting those guys chase after the lost sheep.